This year's Game Awards were arguably the best that they've ever been. The music, the awards, the speeches, everything was on point. But the most poetic part about all of it is Sven Vinca going up on stage and effectively calling out the entire games industry, while at the exact same time, the two biggest reveals in The Witcher 4 and Intergalactic setting social media on fire. And rightfully so. See, while I disagree with some of the criticisms about those two trailers, and we're going to get into that, this is the bed that the industry has made for itself. This reactionary audience, you created it. Now you need to lay with it. What did they expect? What did they think that was going to happen? Oh, they did actually know exactly what was going to happen because they turned off the comments on Intergalactic's trailer before they put it out. You know, if you can't see the criticism, that it doesn't exist, right? Actually, now that I think about it, that's pretty accurate, because if you can't see their comments, then they don't exist, and also neither does their money. See how that's going to work out for you. Well, I think a lot of people might think that, well, 2025 is not going to be the best year in gaming. I think we've seen quite a lot of things that are going to be contrary to that belief. But with that said, today what I want to do is talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of the 2024 Game Awards. But before that, today's sponsor. The sponsor of today's video is Displate. These metal posters are a game changer for decorating your space. Whether you're a gamer, a movie buff, or someone who just loves amazing art, Displate has what you're looking for with over 2 million designs, including officially licensed art from brands like Star Wars, Marvel, Elden Ring, Warhammer, and more. If you've watched any of my previous videos, then you've probably seen I've been using Displate for years. I used to travel for work, living somewhere new almost every single year, and Displate helped make just about anywhere feel like home. The magnet mounting system is ridiculously easy. No tools, no drilling, no wall damage. I would just mount the wall leaf, stick a magnet to it, and swap out the posters anytime I wanted. And with their new texture designs featuring tactile textures, 3D contours, and premium finishes, Displate just raised the bar even further. Trust me, these metal posters are stunning in person. I recently saw they just added a licensed Magic the Gathering mana symbol set. I'm going to be picking that up. So with gifting season right around the corner, this is your chance to grab the perfect present or just treat yourself. Click the link in the description below or go to displate.com and use my code LEGENDARY at checkout to get the best deal. You don't want to miss out on this. Get something that looks incredible and makes your space feel like home, and it only takes seconds to install. Hit that link below and start building your collection today. I need to put things into perspective for you guys because 2024 has been an insane year for video games when you look back at it. We had Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Dragon's Dogma 2, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, both World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV got expansions, Tekken 8, Unicorn Overlord, Satisfactory, Persona 3 Reloaded, Metaphor ReFantazio, Helldivers 2, Black Ops 6, Astrobot, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, Silent Hill 2, Once Human, Black Myth Wukong, and Marvel Rivals, along with massive early access successes in Hades 2, Palworld, and Path of Exile 2. Honestly, I could keep going, but I'm running out of breath. It was an absolutely stacked year for games, and while there are only a few games that can win awards, many of these studios walked away with fatter wallets as players showed up in mass to buy these games and play them. I think it's important to take the time to recognize that despite all the noise and despite all the drama that surrounds this industry at times, there are plenty of studios and plenty of games that are out there that are making games specifically for you. The games that did that better than anyone else are the ones that received awards this year, and in a lot of cases, given the nominees of each of the categories, anyone could be a winner. We saw Final Fantasy VII Rebirth walk away with best score in music. A lot of people didn't even know this, but Final Fantasy VII Rebirth had 175 original soundtracks in the game. Almost every quest, side quest, or activity had its own original song. Whether it was chocobo races, boss battles, playing a game of Queen's Blood, or simply walking a dog, there was a song for everything. Balatro took Best Indie and Mobile Game, Helldivers 2 took Best Multiplayer and then dropped a trailer showing off a new faction and vehicles, and the game's concurrent player numbers skyrocketed. Baldur's Gate 3 snagged Best Community Support, and Black Myth Wukong, despite the industry's attempts to suppress it, won both Player's Choice and Best Action Game, adding to the much-deserved recognition of game science following their Game of the Year or Ultimate Game of the Year win at the Golden Joysticks. Metaphor ReFantazio took Best Art Direction, whether it was the character designs, the beautiful vistas, the combat animations, world-building elements, and enemy designs. The entire game oozed with style. Metaphor also won Best Narrative for quite honestly having the best narrative this year. While I'm working on another video for Metaphor specifically, it's one of the first games in a long time that's been able to tackle topics like diversity, religious persecution, classism, and world politics in a tasteful, thought-provoking, and holistic way. Far too many talentless developers and studios produce games where subtlety and nuance are foreign topics. Metaphor is a game that stands in direct contrast to that and actually respects their audience. Finally, the winner of both Best Game Direction and Game of the Year, to the surprise of many, including myself, was Astrobot. Now, out of the respect of the winner and my audience, I chose to actually download and give the game a shot, and I get it. It's bright and colorful, it has incredible fidelity and performance, and most of all, it's just fun as hell. The game is stuffed with secrets, warps, powers, and references to everything that makes PlayStation PlayStation. It's a pure video game, and I really don't have a single bad thing to say about it, other than the fact that it's a console exclusive and not everybody is going to have the opportunity to play it. Well, it's great to see the best games this year recognized and our favorite games represented for the joy and value that they brought to us. Sven Vinke of Larian Studios stole the show.
It's stupidly simple, but somehow it keeps on getting lost. Studio made their game because they wanted to make a game that they wanted to play themselves. They created it because it hadn't been created before. They didn't make it to increase market share. They didn't make it to serve as a brand. They didn't have to meet arbitrary sales targets or fear being laid off if they didn't meet those targets. And furthermore, the people in charge forbade them from cramming the game with anything whose only purpose was to increase revenue and didn't serve the game design.
Just when you thought Larian Studios couldn't be any better than they are, Sven Vinke is here to set the industry straight and in many ways represent the outcry from the players that we've had all year round. The path to making a game is so simple, yet it always keeps getting lost. It's crazy how developers who make the most beloved games, the most successful games, talk about how easy it is for them to make the decisions because they kept the game and the players at the forefront of what they do. It's just so refreshing to hear from somebody inside the games industry that isn't so ideologically captured that they ignore all sense of reason. Games fail because they weren't made for us or they weren't made with the developers in mind. They were made for ulterior motives, either projects that are completely fueled by investor interests or vehicles to drive their own morals or personal politics. An industry that is rife with profit-sucking vampires who bring nothing to the creative industry or creatives that are bent on brainwashing an audience or seeking validation through a commercial product. In the end, what we saw at the Game Awards wasn't just a celebration of great games, it was a reflection of where the industry stands and where it's heading. The games that won and the ones that didn't serve as a reminder of what players truly value: creativity, respect for the audience, and dedication to making something meaningful and fun. Studios like Larian, Game Science, and even now Team Asobi with Astrobot prove that when developers prioritize the game and its players, the results speak for themselves. But the inverse is also true. When games are made for everyone except the players, made for ulterior motives, they fade into irrelevance. 2024 has been a shining example of how players are willing to support developers who understand and respect their audience, but it's also a great example of what happens to games, studios, and publishers when they turn their back on us. And that's the craziest thing about 2024. We've probably seen the biggest, the widest swings of the pendulum back and forth than we ever have in the history of video games. We saw Palworld, an indie release, break into insane sales numbers. We saw a AAA developer, a first-time AAA developer, break Steam's concurrent player record of all time. We also saw 4 live service games shut down in the same year that they were released. We saw massive IPs in Star Wars and Dragon Age the Veilguard fail. We saw Concord and its studio shut down and shut its game down only a week or a little bit more than a week after its launch. While players have been incredibly lucky with some insane releases this year, this hot and cold, it's just not healthy for the industry. It's not healthy for the players. It's not healthy for the studios or for the developers or for anybody for that matter. And while not every single game can be Baldur's Gate 3 or Elden Ring or anything like that, not every studio can have a Sven Vinke, at the exact same time, we shouldn't have this situation in which we have developers that are out there, and studios specifically. I shouldn't say developers, the folks at the keyboards, folks working on the games usually aren't the ones, it's the leadership that are driving a lot of this stuff. But We shouldn't have people that are out there that are making games for ulterior motives and aren't making games with us in mind. And if we are in mind, the only reason we are is because it's how much they either hate us or how much they want to take from us. Any real change to this industry isn't going to come anytime soon, but change does happen. It takes a long time to make a video game. It takes even longer to change leadership or workplace culture or directives and ideals and all those kind of things. But that's what makes talking about these kind of things important, and it really makes voting with your wallet even more important. You have to make sure that you're making the right choices with the games that you're buying, support the studios that need the support, because at the end of the day, that's how these studios start to listen, because they go, well, that's where all the money's going. That's where I'm going to go. And if you thought that all of this craziness was just going to be in 2024, 2025 ain't looking much different. We saw Mafia Old Country, Slay the Spire 2, Ninja Gaiden Rage Rebound, Borderlands 4, and a new Virtua Fighter, which we haven't seen that series in almost 20 years now. And just when you thought that the reveals couldn't get any better, Capcom came out swinging. Not only did they announce a new Onimusha, but they also revealed one of their most beloved classics in Okami. Now, Okami is more of a game that's art than entertainment. It had really stunning ink painting aesthetics and emotionally resonant story. It still remains one of gaming's greatest cult classics. But on top of that, with the popularity of Capcom's recent releases, they've just been absolutely killing it lately. Mix that with the interest and the success in Souls games and Ghost of Tsushima, Onimusha is bound to do well. It's a blend of samurai action and survival horror. It's basically Resident Evil with katanas and Japanese mythology. We're talking intense combat, gorgeous environments, gripping stories, and fans, including myself, have been begging for this game to return for over a decade. Now, if they could only remember Dino Crisis. But speaking of dinosaurs, we got Turok. Yes, Turok is back. This one absolutely floored me. My friends and I lived on this game. It essentially defined an era of shooters with some of the most intricate level design and creative weapons that you've ever seen. I cannot wait to get my hands on a cerebral boar. Nothing beats watching enemies run around helplessly as a homing drill bores into their skull and mixes up their brains. Now, a standalone Elden Ring Monster Hunter multiplayer roguelike was definitely not on my 2024 bingo card. However, this has to be the moment when somebody realized that you could deep fry just about anything. Oreos, pickles, cheesecake, ice cream, avocado. Why does the FromSoft formula sound so good next to just about anything? And given the studio's success record, it's hard to imagine this game not living up to players' expectations. I mean, I love Demon Souls, Dark Souls, and Elden Ring. Well, I don't know what this multiplayer experience is going to be like. Progression is probably the one thing that I'm skeptical on. I will tell you that some of the most fun that I've ever had playing a FromSoft game is the time that I've spent playing with my friends. Dark Souls 3 full co-op with Cinders and Convergence mod, Elden Ring with full co-op. Man, the idea of a full-blown Elden Ring experience designed specifically around multiplayer has my full attention. Now, after this came the reveal of Witcher 4, and that's where things get spicy. The Witcher 4 set social media ablaze. Many people voicing their concerns over Ciri being a Witcher, citing the source material, while others are believing that it was done for ulterior motives, and then you also had some people that just flat out thought the character looked ugly. Much of this was spurred on by the news, drama, and videos that were made exposing CD Projekt Red's hiring practices, beliefs, and their alleged involvement with consultancy agencies while working on The Witcher 4. And honestly, I get it. The skepticism surrounding CD Projekt Red is valid. When a company makes decisions or takes actions outside of their games that raise red flags, it's only natural to question their motives. That is a pattern that we have seen across the industry, and it has led to a lot of mistrust. I can't fault anyone for being cautious. After all, we've been burned before. But at the same time, I think that we need to be careful to not overreach or jump to conclusions without context. Ciri was always going to end up being the central character in the next game. She has been the heart of the Witcher series, the driving force behind Geralt's journey, the key to so many of the game's most important events, and a symbol, the symbol of the series' broader themes of family and destiny. Watching her story unfold, watching her grow over the years, it feels natural that we'd finally get to play as her in a meaningful way. I mean, the most popular ending of The Witcher 3 alludes to this. Now, luckily for us, CD Projekt Red has already responded to some of the criticism, and they want to calm people down. Following the Game Awards, both the director and executive producer for The Witcher 4 joined Skill Up on the Friends Per Second podcast to shed some light on their decisions and what players can expect. I'm going to summarize things as their English is a bit broken, but when they're talking about the trailer, they take note that what we saw, design-wise, isn't finalized and is still in early production. It's only what they are aspiring towards. However, the assets that are used in the trailer are from the game. The trailer is meant to set our expectations of what Ciri is going to be capable of in the game and what the tone of the game is going to be. As many have astutely pointed out, even Geralt in cinematics didn't really match up to what was represented in game. This is likely going to be the same thing for The Witcher 4 with Ciri. They also revealed that the choice to make Ciri become a Witcher was made back when they were still developing The Witcher 3, quote saying, "In our hearts, in the way that we make the lore and everything, it's with full respect to the canon. With every decision, for example, the experience on the path of Ciri to become a Witcher, we made this choice 9 years ago. It's not just snap, she's a Witcher, it's very well thought out. Narrative is what we do best. Let us cook." Finally, they go on to talk about learnings from Cyberpunk 2077 for quality control, saying that there is more accountability among staff and that they will play the game from the beginning rather than just trying to get it playable. Also, something that I found really interesting here is that they want players to be able to roleplay through combat after seeing how players responded to Cyberpunk 2077's changes to its talent tree and its dialogue options, meaning that we could see completely different gameplay or narrative outcomes if we are focusing on swordplay, magic, or Witcher abilities. What I'm going to say here is that ultimately it is up to CD Projekt Red to prove that this direction for The Witcher is an evolution born out of respect for the series and its fans, not external pressures or ulterior motives. The glimpses that we've seen thus far, combined with their statements about the narrative depth and quality control, show potential, but potential is all that is until we see the final product. I am cautiously optimistic. I know what the studio is capable of. The Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077 are brilliant games. I absolutely love them, and if they've truly learned from the past and their past mistakes, they have the tools to deliver something incredible here. But for now, all we can do is keep our expectations in check, let them cook, and remember, don't pre-order games. Let's wait to see if The Witcher 4 can rise to the occasion or if it's going to yet again be another lesson that the rest of the industry and they can't afford to ignore. How in the hell is nobody talking about the fact that they didn't make Ciri look as strong as Geralt? That's huge here. When you go back and you watch that trailer, she has to use her entire body weight when she is using that chain to be able to choke the monster out. She's using her legs as leverage. She's rotating her entire body. Geralt likely wouldn't have had to do something like that. He would have just used his arms because, well, he was strong. Not to mention the fact that when she goes to chop the monster's head off, it takes 2 swings, and the second swing, she has to put her full body weight behind it to be able to get it to go all the way through. There is a lot of respect for the audience's intelligence there, and that's going underappreciated. And that alone gave me a lot more faith than I think a lot of people are giving to this game right now. And I think that's really important because in a lot of cases for games like this, the ones that we think are filled with a bunch of red flags, they don't have stuff like that in it. Personally, I'm stoked to play as Ciri. I loved her as a character. I think she's awesome. And I'll say this, it's not that I'm not skeptical. CD Projekt Red has made a mighty tall order here. You're walking away from a beloved character. Everybody loves Geralt. And on top of that, they now have to explain how Ciri, one of the most powerful characters in all of fiction, is one, a Witcher somehow, and then also at the exact same time doesn't have her Elder Blood powers. I mean, she literally has the power over space and time. How are you going to nerf her? Because that's a pretty big question to answer, my friend. Taking creative liberties and messing around with beloved characters is a huge risk for a lot of franchises. And we've been burned by those things before in other media, in other games, and I'm not going to say that's not a risky move. But do you know what's even more risky? Taking a established studio that has spent most of their goodwill on remakes and remasters and putting out a cringe-worthy main character in their new IP. Oh, and turning the comments off. Naughty Dog Part 2, the remake, remasters, and Intergalactic. The last big reveal of the Game Awards, and this one was a powder keg. Oh no. I think we might be looking at a Star Wars Outlaws Part 2 situation here, but I don't know. We'll see. This is a reaction that I feel I am not alone in. Now, I will say that I like the overall aesthetic and the themes of the game. Retro 80s sci-fi can go insanely hard if done well, especially when they say that they were inspired by Akira and Cowboy Bebop. And I can also recognize that when Naughty Dog is at their peak, they can deliver some incredible games. With that said, while there isn't much to go on, we don't even really know what kind of game this is, there is already so much that I do not like here. Now, this is more or less a true test for the real viewers that are out there. Maybe you guys have already picked out exactly what would really tick me off with this trailer, and it's product placement. The gateway drug to full-blown advertisements in video games, and likely one of the worst trends that we will ever see. It's a Sony game, so I'm not going to throw any shade for them marketing their own brand inside of a game, but Porsche and Adidas, this is how massive corporate entities will continue to grow their profits. Making hundreds of millions of dollars off of a game isn't enough. Buying the game, buying the microtransactions, season passes, or DLC isn't enough. They are going to want that sweet, sweet advertiser money to line their pockets even further. Nakey Jakey, the GOAT himself, actually has an incredible video on specifically this subject, going over the evolution of product placement in video games and how at times it can actually add to the immersion. If I'm playing a driving game and I'm driving around a city, it's, well, good to see things that are familiar to me. If I'm playing a sports game and there are sponsored arena partitions, well, that feels like a natural part of the game, and in some ways it adds to the authenticity. However, what does a bright Adidas logo or a space Porsche have anything to do with anything other than unmasked corporate greed? I know that Sony has had a rough year. Concord really hurt bad, but this is a step way too far. Speaking of Concord, you would think that they would have learned or could at least recognize the telltale signs of something that wouldn't interest players or would unnecessarily divide their audience. When I saw the main protagonist in Intergalactic, all I could think of was, this ain't it. Nothing about the character is likable, their attitude, their personality, or their design. I honestly don't know what is up with this modern obsession to force players into playing characters that a fraction of people are going to be interested in. As I said in the clip, this feels like another Star Wars Outlaws disaster or Concord Part 2, which is incredibly sad to say. The reason why I say it's sad is because this game could very well end up being great, hell, an all-timer, but they are wittingly gatekeeping an audience because they want to ignore reality. They are purposefully doing this. They know it's wrong. They know it's the poor decision to make. They know it's going to divide the audience, and they proved it by locking the comments of the trailer. Look, contrary to what players are saying on Twitter, we don't need every single female character in a video game to look like Eve from Stellar Blade. What we do need is for them to be interesting, engaging, and most importantly, relatable. The best characters, regardless of gender, are the ones that feel like they belong in the story, that they serve a purpose beyond diversity good and look how inclusive we are. They should make players care about the journey, their struggles, and their growth, not just tolerate them because they're there. Now, the problem with Naughty Dog's choice in the protagonist for Intergalactic isn't just that the character feels unrelatable. There is an active dissonance between the audience that they are trying to reach and the character that they have presented. When I watched the trailer, I didn't see somebody that was compelling or intriguing. I saw a personality designed to polarize, to generate discourse, and to make a statement. But here's the truth. Players don't want a statement. We want a character who feels real, who pulls us into this world and makes us forget that it's fiction. Instead, we are being handed someone who feels more like they are a caricature than a person. Eric Kane of Forbes, somebody that I frequently disagree with, but overall really enjoy his work. He's one of the very few journalists that are out there that doesn't just ignore the elephant in the room and often will weigh in on both sides, but he ended up writing an article that was titled, Naughty Dog's New Game Intergalactic Stirs Up Controversy with Concord Comparisons. In it, he has this solid summary at the end where he says, but I remain leery of the protagonist beyond her looks. The smarmy, know-it-all girl boss is the new grizzled white dude when it comes to tiresome video game character tropes. Maybe that's not Jordan, but that's the vibe that I get. And like many other gamers, I'm tired of being preached at. And maybe that won't happen in Intergalactic, but it's a valid concern at this point when it comes to AAA Western video games. I don't mind political themes in games, but modern politics, whether right-wing identity politics or social justice identity politics, just break immersion and make a game feel instantly dated. And it really is just as simple as that. This looks like a game that is going to preach to me, and it's coming from a studio that is known for preaching to its audience. I know that the Twitter police, journalists, and game developers are going to label this however they want, but the reality is simple. Players have taste. While games are undeniably art, they are also products that are designed for consumption. And this isn't a character that is going to appeal to a majority male consumer demographic, especially given the game's themes and what the gameplay is likely going to be like. Naughty Dog can double down on their vision all they want, but if players do not see themselves in this game, they will not show up for it. And when that happens, the blame won't be on the audience, it'll be on those who ignored them. What's really frustrating for me is that it's so difficult to have a genuine conversation around a topic like this, because the minute that something like this starts up, both sides of the argument start to virtue signal towards their respective audiences. You have people that are retweeting images of Eve from Stellar Blade and upscaled images of Ciri, and then you have the other side that is only engaging with that mode of thought, believing that the people that are complaining or the people that have concerns are just people that want white men and hot chicks in video games. It's so intellectually dishonest. It's so frustrating. And it works against the actual conversation that should be having, because they couldn't be further from the truth. It's as simple as that. When I'm looking at this game, my issue with it is that it just doesn't have this cool factor that it should, because the themes of the game are sick. And I'm getting these like Cowboy Bebop or Outlaw Star vibes, but instead of getting Spike Spiegel or Faye Valentine, we're getting a smug, snarky, Northern Californian art school dropout. That's just not it. I'm just going to say it right there. Just not it. And, you know, I respect creative freedom. I respect them to want to create whatever they want to create. But at the exact same time, I know that this isn't out of creativity. This is out of activism. And activism, by its very nature, is divisive. It is bent on dividing people into camps to make a choice, to fight for whatever they're fighting for. And in this case, you are doing that with other people's money. These developers are doing that with other people's money. The leadership of these companies are doing that with other people's money, whether that's PlayStation's money or even the players' money in this case. And that's what's upsetting about all of this. And when you're ignoring player feedback on something like this, and we've seen it across the board the entire year, we've seen everybody play ignorant to it. And we're just going to end up seeing something that's going to suffer the same fate as Concord. It's exactly what's going to happen again. You know, right after the Game Awards, I'm talking like minutes after the Game Awards, I ended up posting on Twitter and I asked about whether or not there was proof of a game that had, you know, AAA level success, but had a trailer that they had put out that nobody liked. They got downvoted into oblivion, that everybody couldn't stand it. And the only example that I got, and this is crazy, The Last of Us Part 2, which ended up selling 44 or 45% less copies than The Last of Us Part 1. While that's not a failure, that is a trend. And it's not a good one. That's all I'm going to say on that. Well, at least I don't have to worry about there not being any drama in 2025. Anyway, this is one of the last videos I'll be making for 2024 so far. I got a couple more that I got to put out, a couple other I have to make to be able to schedule. I'm taking a week off for Christmas and stuff like that. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you guys did, like the video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, follow me on Twitch if you guys want to catch me live. Outside of that, stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Family, 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 family.
Click the link in the description below or go to Displate.com and use my code LEGENDARY at checkout to get the best deal. You don't want to miss out on this. Get something that looks incredible and makes your space feel like home, and it only takes seconds to install. Hit that link below and start building your collection today.